Welcome to Restoria, your cozy corner for gentle bedtime stories. My name is James and I'll be your host tonight. Every night, we bring you peaceful tales designed to calm your mind and help you drift off into a deep, restful sleep. So snuggle in, close your eyes, and let the story begin. The story tonight is called Bakery of Warm Nights. Chapter 1. The oven glows before dawn. In the heart of a village wrapped in golden meadows and the slow hush of early mornings, there stood a little bakery with crooked shutters and a chimney that leaned ever so slightly toward the sky. Even before the sun touched the rooftops, the bakery's windows glowed warm with light. Inside, Tom was already at work. His strong hands moved through the dough in steady, practiced motions: fold, press, turn, rest. The wooden table creaked softly beneath him, dusted with flour like snow that never melted. Across the room, Mira moved with quiet grace. She hummed a song that had no words, just soft sounds that curled in the air like steam. Her apron was already smudged with cinnamon and honey, and her fingertips shone faintly from stirring warm sugar into glaze. The kitchen smelled of oats and citrus peel, of vanilla and rising yeast, and something else, something softer, like memory or comfort. Outside, the village was still dark, but one by one, the lights would wake, and when they did, the scent of Tom's loaves and Mira's sweet buns would drift through the streets, inviting even the weariest to start their day with something warm. But this chapter of their day, the one before sunrise, was theirs alone. Tom reached for the rising basket, lifting a round of dough so gently it might have been a sleeping bird. Mira passed him a pan without speaking. She didn't need to. They had long ago learned to move like two notes in the same lullaby. The only sounds were the quiet crackle of the oven, the low hum of Mira's voice, and the rhythm of the dough giving in to Tom's patient hands. This was the hour when peace baked into every loaf, and it had been this way for years. The village loved them, not just for the sweetness of their breads, but for the calm that came with each bite. People said Tom's honey-oat loaves could quiet an anxious mind, and Mira's chamomile buns could lull even a restless heart. But what most villagers never saw was what happened after the shop closed, when the fire dimmed and the shelves stood empty. That came later. For now, Mira lit the small lantern near the door, a flickering light to guide early risers. She set out the first tray of oat scones and rosemary twists, brushing each one with a touch of egg wash as Tom pulled golden loaves from the oven. Together, they worked without rush. There was no need. The day would unfold in its own time. Tom smiled as he caught Mira watching the sky through the flour-fogged window. "Still gray," she murmured. "Give it a moment," he said, sliding the next tray into the oven. And right on cue, the first pale streak of morning stretched over the thatched roofs outside. It touched the bakery first. It always did. They didn't speak for a while. They didn't need to. The sun rose, the dough rose, and the world turned slow and kind around them. In another hour, the bell above the door would chime, and the scent of lavender scones would wrap around the first customer like a hug. But before that, Before the shelves filled and the village came to life, Tom and Mira had one more tray to prepare. A smaller tray, a quieter one. Mira reached for the pale lavender shortbread she had shaped the night before. Tom added 2 dreamberry tarts and a pair of cinnamon cloud rolls so soft they barely held their shape. Together, they wrapped the tray in a linen cloth, tied with a ribbon the color of the evening sky, and they set it gently on the windowsill. No sign, no price, no need to knock. It would wait for whoever needed it most. The oven glowed warm behind them, its last embers sighing like a lullaby. And as the village began to stir, Tom and Mira stood quietly at the kitchen door, shoulder to shoulder, watching the sun spill gold over the cobblestones. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The day had begun, and the first dreams of morning had already been baked. Chapter 2. A Tray for the Night. The day in the village passed, as it always did, slow, kind, and warm at the edges. The scent of Tom and Mira's bakery floated like a song through the crooked lanes, softening the pace of even the busiest feet. Children skipped past with sugar-dusted fingers. Old friends paused by the door to breathe in the smell of cinnamon and oats before continuing on their way. A traveler with a worn pack lingered longer, savoring a slice of lemon poppy seed loaf with eyes half closed. But by mid-afternoon, the bakery quieted. The shelves thinned. The air grew thicker with the stillness that always followed the last sale. Tom wiped down the counters. Mira rinsed the glaze bowls and hung the aprons by the door. Neither of them mentioned the tray on the windowsill, though both of them glanced at it once or twice the same way one might glance at a sleeping cat curled in sunlight. By sunset, the tray was empty, as it always was. No one ever came in to thank them. No one ever left a note. But each morning, the linen was folded neatly on the sill, and the tray sat clean and quiet, ready to be filled again. That night, after the door was locked and the oven had cooled to a soft sigh, Tom leaned against the counter and watched Mira dust flour off her sleeves. "You think they needed it?" he asked. Mira looked out the window, where the stars had begun to peek through a deepening blue. "I think someone always does," she said. They stood there for a moment, the hush between them filled with quiet understanding. Then, Mira picked up a bowl and began stirring. Chamomile and honey, warm milk, and a pinch of something floral. Tom moved to the flour bin, scooping without looking. His hands knew the recipe, as well as they knew her. Together, they baked. Not much, just enough. A few cloud rolls, a slice of dream cake with blueberry and lemon, a twist of almond and clove. The bakery filled again with the smell of comfort, even as the rest of the village grew still. And outside, unseen by either of them, a child sat curled beneath the eaves across the street. They had not meant to be out so late. They had not meant to follow the smell. But when sleep would not come, and the house was too quiet and too loud at once, they had wandered slippers on cobblestones, blanket over shoulders, and ended up here. The bakery window glowed like a lantern, and inside, two people danced. It was not a real dance, not at first. Tom spun with a tray in hand. Mira moved to fetch a bowl, and somewhere in the middle of it, laughter bloomed. He offered his hand. She raised an eyebrow. Then, barefoot and smiling, she stepped into his arms. They moved in a slow circle across the flour-dusted tiles, the oven's glow painting soft gold across the walls. The child watched, eyes wide, breath quiet. This was not the kind of magic with sparks or spells. It was quieter than that. A lullaby made of tea and bread, and two people who remembered how to be gentle in a world that often forgot. The tray was set on the sill. The cloth was folded smooth. The dancing stopped. But the warmth did not. The child stepped closer. Carefully, quietly. A cinnamon roll, still warm. They lifted it with both hands, cradling it like something precious. No one spoke. No one needed to. Inside, Mira blew out the lantern. Tom drew the curtains. Outside, the child turned and wandered back the way they came, heart beating slower now, wrapped in the hush of flour and honey. And the bakery, quiet again, stood like a steady flame in the night. Because somewhere in the dark, someone might be sleepless. And there would always be something waiting on the windowsill. Chapter 3. A Familiar Crumb. The next night, the village was quiet again. The bakery door closed with a soft click. The shutters were drawn, and the lantern over the counter gave off its gentle glow. Tom rinsed the last bowl as Mira folded fresh cloth napkins into neat triangles, stacking them on the shelf above the spice rack. It had been a peaceful day, full of smiles and stories traded across the counter. A traveling musician had left a coin wrapped in ribbon. The mayor had lingered for a third slice of Mira's lemon braid. A teacher had bought a box of rolls for a class reward, though she confessed with a wink that they'd never make it to the schoolhouse. As the warmth of the oven faded to coals, Tom reached for a wooden board and began to arrange the tray. 2 dreamberry tarts, a square of lemon sleep cake, 1 perfectly round moon honey bun. Mira added a folded note, just a sprig of dried lavender tied to parchment with string. No words. They placed the tray on the windowsill, as they always did. And again, as always, they did not wait. But on the other side of the lane, beneath the cover of night, the same child sat hidden once more. A little braver this time. Wrapped in their blanket, chin tucked into the crook of their arm, they watched the bakery window flicker with golden light. The moment Tom and Mira stepped away, the child crossed the lane. Their slippers barely whispered on the cobblestones. They stood before the window a moment, breathing in the warmth that still clung to the air around the sill. Their fingers hovered, then reached slowly for the moon honey bun. It was still warm. It tasted like everything good. And something else, too. Something steady. They left a single blue button on the tray. A gift in return. Inside, Mira returned to the window just in time to glimpse the edge of a blanket disappearing around the corner. She said nothing, just smiled and picked up the button. That night, she kept it in her pocket as she and Tom moved quietly around the house. They didn't speak about it, but both of them dreamed sweeter than usual. The kind of dreams you only have when the air outside is full of bread and stars. Chapter 4. Notes in the Night. Morning brought soft clouds and the scent of cinnamon that lingered longer than usual outside the bakery. Mira opened the windows, letting in the breeze, while Tom kneaded the first batch of honey-oat dough. On the sill, where the tray had sat, was the blue button. Mira turned it over in her hand, smiling. A simple gift, and yet it felt like a story waiting to be told. She placed it in a small wooden box beneath the counter, alongside a dried sprig of rosemary a traveler had once left, and a small stone shaped like a heart from a child years ago. Quiet treasures. That evening, after the bread was baked and the shutters drawn, Mira sat at the counter and carefully tore a square of parchment. She dipped her pen into a small jar of ink and began to write. Sleep comes easier when someone is thinking kindly of you. She tied the note with a bit of twine and tucked it gently beside the dreamberry tart on that night's tray. Tom raised an eyebrow. Noticed something? He asked, sliding a cinnamon twist onto the linen. Just a hunch, she replied. The tray was set as usual, quiet and warm on the windowsill. And once again, across the lane, the child waited. They came forward after the lights dimmed, their blanket wrapped tighter around their shoulders. Tonight, they took the tart and found the note. Their breath caught just a little. Back home, they placed the parchment on their nightstand, rereading the words by moonlight until their eyes closed. The next night, a different pastry, a new note. Even quiet hearts are never alone. And beside the empty plate in the morning, a small paper star, folded carefully, its edges neat. Mira added it to the box. Tom began baking more of the moon honey buns. By the end of the week, the notes had become a ritual. Never too long. Always gentle. Thoughts like steam rising from warm cups. There is peace in slow things. You are more loved than you know. And each time, a gift was left behind. A feather, a glass bead, a smooth stone painted with a sun. Mira never asked Tom if he knew. Tom never said he noticed. But both of them began humming more as they worked. The oven glowed a little brighter, and the sleepy pastries became just a touch sweeter. Night by night, the child grew bolder. They lingered longer by the window, sometimes watching Mira twirl across the tiles with a spoon in hand, or Tom toss flour into the air like snow. One evening, they left something different, a note of their own, scrawled in looping letters. Thank you. I sleep better now. Mira held the note in both hands for a long while. Then she folded it neatly and placed it in the box. That night, they baked extra. 2 tarts, 1 moon bun, and a tiny pouch of sugar-dusted almonds tied with a ribbon. No reply was needed. Only this: a child curled warm in their bed, a bakery window glowing against the dark, and kindness, quiet as flower on the wind, drifting through the village like a lullaby. Chapter 5. Storm and Sugar. The wind came first. It tugged gently at the eaves, whispered through the bakery's shutters, and stirred the linen curtains with quiet insistence. Mira looked up from her mixing bowl as the lantern above the counter swayed slightly. "Storm's coming," Tom said, not looking away from the dough he was folding. "You can smell it. And you could. Rain, not yet fallen. Earth, waiting to drink." By the time the last cinnamon twists were cooling and the shutters had been latched tight, the rain had arrived. It drummed softly on the rooftop, a steady rhythm that matched the thump of Mira's careful steps across the flour-dusted tiles. Tonight's tray was simpler comfort food: cloud rolls, a pair of dreamberry biscuits, and a square of honey cake wrapped in waxed paper. Mira added a note, this one tucked under a ribbon the color of stormlight. "It's okay to rest when the sky cries too." She placed the tray on the windowsill and closed the pane behind it with a soft click. Across the street, the child watched from beneath their blanket, now damp at the edges. They had nearly turned back earlier when the first drops had started to fall. But something had pulled them forward, maybe the memory of a bun still warm, or the scent of almond and vanilla curling through the mist. They crept to the sill, hands shaking just a little. The ribbon shimmered faintly in the lantern glow. They lifted the tray into their arms, careful not to spill the tea cake. Inside, Mira caught sight of a small shadow on the glass and opened the window a crack. "You'll get soaked," she said gently. The child froze. Then a shuffle, a pause, a voice, small and unsure. "I didn't mean to bother you." "You didn't," Tom called from the stove. "But you'll catch a chill." There was another pause, and then, "May I come in for just a minute?" Mira opened the door. The child stepped inside, the tray still clutched tightly in both hands. The bakery smelled of cinnamon and clove, and the warmth hit like a soft blanket. Mira helped remove the wet cloak, replaced it with a thick towel. "Sit," Tom said, gesturing to the stool near the counter. He poured a mug of warm milk and set it beside a fresh biscuit. The child sat, slowly. They did not speak right away, only took small bites, eyes wide as they followed Mira's soft steps and Tom's easy hums. The storm sang quietly at the windows. The oven glowed. No questions were asked, none were needed. And by the time the milk was gone and the clouds had softened to drizzle, the child had begun to smile. When they finally rose to leave, Mira handed them a small pouch tied with twine. "For later," she said, and Tom added, "Come by whenever the wind keeps you up." The door closed gently behind them. Outside, the sky began to clear, and inside, the tray on the windowsill was replaced with another simple, sweet, and waiting. Because some nights, you don't need to be brave. Some nights, you just need somewhere warm to sit until the storm passes. Chapter 6. A Gift for the Bakers. Morning brought soft sunlight and the scent of sugar lingering long after the last bun had left the shelf. Tom swept the front step while Mira arranged fresh sprigs of rosemary in a jar near the window. Business was gentle that day. Familiar faces, shared stories. A little boy bought a biscuit with 2 buttons. A postman lingered for an extra minute to sip his tea. And tucked under the window, still barely visible behind the flower box, was a package wrapped in brown paper and tied with a red string. Mira spotted it first. She knelt to retrieve it, brushing away flour from her fingers before untying the knot. Inside, a simple drawing. A picture of a crooked little bakery glowing beneath a starry sky. 2 people stood in the window, one tall, one smaller, both smiling. There was even a little swirl above the chimney, curling like a song. At the bottom, written in careful block letters, "Thank you. I sleep better now." Tom looked over Mira's shoulder and said nothing for a long moment. Then he cleared his throat softly and returned to kneading the next round of dreamberry rolls. Mira placed the drawing inside the small wooden box beneath the counter, alongside the blue button, the paper star, and all the tiny tokens left behind. Later that day, as dust settled and the shutters creaked closed, she reached again for parchment. This note was longer than the rest. Some people carry storms in their chest. Some carry silence. It's okay if you don't know what to say. You are welcome anyway. She tied it to the pouch of sugar almonds. That night, Tom prepared a new addition to the sleepy tray. A small jar with a cork lid filled with pale gold honey they'd saved from the last bloom of summer. "A little light," he said, placing it in the center. Outside, as always, the child came, but they did not take the tray and go. Not tonight. They stayed sitting quietly on the step, blanket draped over their shoulders, hands curled in their lap. The window glowed. Mira saw them first. She opened the door without a word and placed a second mug of warm milk on the step beside them. Then she returned inside. The child sipped slowly, and when the stars blinked high enough to rest against the sky, they rose and set the mug gently beside the door. Inside the pouch that night, beside the almonds and the note, Mira added one more thing. A key, small and silver, tied with a ribbon of blue. No lock, no instructions. Just a quiet invitation. Some doors are opened not by knocking, but by being brave enough to come back. Chapter 7. The Door That Stays Unlocked. It was the kind of night that didn't ask anything. No storm, no moon, just a quiet sky and the steady warmth of chimneys across the village. Inside the bakery, the last ember in the oven glowed faintly, a red pulse in the shadows. Mira leaned against the counter with a dish towel still in her hand. Tom sat on the stool near the door, lacing his boots loosely, though he had nowhere to go. The tray on the windowsill was already set. 2 dreamberry tarts, a sugar-dusted twist, A folded cloth napkin with a single mint leaf resting in its center, and the silver key tied with a ribbon. Mira had written no note that night. Some messages are quiet on purpose. Across the lane, no one watched. No blanket, no child, no hint of small footsteps. The air was still. The stars blinked slowly, and yet Tom kept glancing at the door. Mira wiped the same corner of the counter more times than it needed. They didn't say anything. They didn't need to. And then the breath of movement. The faintest sound of slippered feet. The door creaked. Slowly. Just enough. The child stepped in, holding the key. Their cheeks were pink from the cool air, their shoulders drawn tight. But their eyes held steady as they looked from Mira to Tom and back again. Tom nodded, stood, and walked to the back without a word. Mira didn't smile this time. She didn't reach for a towel or a cup. She simply opened her arms. The child walked in and let themselves be held. It was quiet. Just the ticking of the kitchen clock and the faint crackle of the last ember. Later, Mira brought out a blanket and laid it on the bench beneath the front window. The child curled up without asking, and Tom set a cup of warm milk nearby. No tray was placed on the sill that night. No need. The gift had already been received. And still, as morning neared, as the stars began to fade and the sky lightened from navy to gray, the bakery window glowed. The child slept soundly on the bench. Mira leaned in the doorway, sipping tea. Tom baked quietly, shaping dough with care. Outside, the village stirred. Inside, the oven warmed again. And the key? It stayed on the hook by the door. Not hidden, not guarded, just waiting, in case someone else couldn't sleep. Because some places are built not just of brick and wood and flour, but of kindness, of listening, of staying soft, even when the world feels hard. And in a village of golden meadows, beneath the chimney that leaned just a little too far, the door to the bakery would never truly be locked. Not at night. Not for the quiet-hearted. Not for those who bring buttons or paper stars or nothing at all. Just themselves. Just a need for warmth. Just a hope that maybe, somewhere, someone is baking with love. And always will be.